Hey, good evening. Carl Rominger here. You're listening to Rominger Radio Live. 717-916-5189 is the talk line. Oh, a lot going on this week. We talked Sunday with a very good religious conversation. A lot of people listening to that. So if you haven't had a chance, check it out on the Spreaker archive or go to carlrominger.com and look at the recent shows. And you can see what we talked about. Always happy to rehash those topics if you didn't get a chance to get on the air the other day and you really have a feeling about dogs getting to heaven and all that sort of thing. 717-916-5189. Tonight I really wanted to also talk about the Supreme Court decisions. The United States Supreme Court had a few very interesting decisions today. By the way, your show is brought to you in part by Shiner Bohemian Black Lager. Now, they're actually really a sponsor, but by my drinking them, I can pass the 2 hours and talk with great verve. Yep, tastes pretty good. Okay, anyhow, 717-916-5189, Carl Rominger here. What's going on out there? Well, the Supreme Court decided two big decisions today. They decided against Arrow, which is a service that provides TV to your internet. So they would take a live broadcast, pluck it out of the airwaves, and send it right to your TV. They're done. Well, maybe not done, but they're going to have to pay licensing fees. ABC sued them. The Supreme Court found them to be similar to a cable service. They had created a technology, however, where there was a folder for you, an antenna for you. Everything was for you, so it's just like installing your own antenna on the roof. Supreme Court said, not exactly. Found it to be like a cable TV and said, no, you have to pay copyright. It's copyright infringement unless you pay. It's a public performance. It's not like a TV antenna when you aggregate all those antennas together and provide a cable-like service. So who knows what's going to happen with that company. Hopefully you didn't have too much money wrapped up in them. 717-916-5189. More interestingly in the sense that it may affect your day-to-day life, the United States Supreme Court has said that police officers incident to arrest may not look in your cell phone. They can look at the cell phone, they can look and make sure there's no weapons hidden in it and make sure it's not immediately dangerous, but they have no right to look at your data without a warrant. The Supreme Court recognized a privacy right. And so whenever an item or a thing wasn't something that the founders would have contemplated, obviously a smartphone was not in the minds and thoughts of our earliest founders. The Supreme Court looks at a balance between what the public would expect as an expectation of privacy versus the governmental need. Okay, and we are back. Took a little lightning strike there. Believe it or not, I can actually attribute this one directly to the lightning. It just crashed down and zapped the electricity in the whole 9 yards, but everything's back up and running. So, where was I before? I was so rudely interrupted by nature or God, depending upon who you ask, depending on our last guess. I was saying the United States Supreme Court had come out with this decision basically saying that you balance the reasonable expectation of privacy which was unconstitutional. In the other case, the state of California had said it was not unconstitutional that the police may go through your cell phone and look at the data in your cell phone whenever they want. And to give you a little idea of the difference between the two cases, I got the actual syllabus of the Supreme Court here. Syllabus is not the decision of the Supreme Court, but there's a guy who's a Dickinson graduate who actually writes the syllabus, believe it or not. And so in the California case, It basically goes like this. Riley was stopped for a traffic violation, which eventually led to his arrest on a weapons charge. An officer searching Riley, incident to the arrest, seized a cell phone from his pants pocket. The officer accessed information on the phone and noticed the repeated use of a term associated with a street gang. At the police station 2 hours later, a detective specializing in gangs further examined the phone's digital contents. Based in part on photographs and videos that the detective found, the state charged Riley in connection with a shooting that occurred a few weeks earlier and sought an enhanced sentence based on Riley's gang membership. Riley moved to suppress all evidence the police had obtained from his cell phone. The trial court denied that motion. He was convicted. It's going to go back for a new trial. They're not going to be able to use the information they got from the phone. It doesn't mean he won't get convicted again. In the Massachusetts case, respondent Worry was arrested after police observed him participate in a apparent drug sale. At the police station, police seized a cell phone from his person and noticed that the phone was receiving multiple calls from a source identified as My House on its external screen. The officer opened the phone, accessed its call log, and determined the number associated with My House label and traced that number to where the suspect's Weary's apartment. They executed a search warrant and found drugs, a firearm, ammunition, and cash in the ensuing search. He charged with firearms drug offenses, and he moved to suppress the evidence obtained from the search of the apartment on the fact that it came from the warrantless search of his phone. The First Circuit Court reversed the denial of the motion to suppress and vacated the relevant convictions, meaning the appellate courts there threw it out. So it came up on a split decision from two different states, and the Supreme Court basically said the police generally may not, without a warrant, search digital information on a cell phone seized from an individual who has been arrested. The warrantless search is reasonable only if it falls within a specific exemption to the Fourth Amendment's warrant requirements, and they go on to say it doesn't. Now, there were Supreme Court cases in the past where, in fact, I'm back, Don. Don't you worry. We're here live, man. It's up and going. Long story short, there were cases where, for instance, a cigarette package was open, and the guy said, hey, they searched me, and they found some drugs in my cigarette pack, but they shouldn't have opened the cigarette pack. And the U.S. Supreme Court said, well, a defendant might hide weapons or other dangerous items in there, which could be dangerous to the officers, or otherwise we need to know what's in there right away. And so that is a basis to open the cigarette pack search incident to the arrest. Now, of course, my theory is if you're under arrest and you're in cuffs, what's in your cigarette box probably isn't about to hurt the officers, but I'll give them the benefit of the doubt. Here they basically said, well, it may be problematic and the data may be useful at some point, but the data is not in any eminent way going to hurt the officers. They also left open the possibility, however, if the police could articulate a basis to think that there is an emergency, or the legal term exigency, that they could then drill down into the phone immediately to prevent any harm which might flow immediately. So that was kind of interesting. Basically leaving it open. So the police, if you're one of these, Johnny do-gooders who believes that the police are always right, and if you're not doing anything illegal, what's personal freedom got to do with it? I don't know that some of my listeners. Well, then, guess what? It's not really going to hamper law enforcement, because if there's really an exigency, they can get in there and look at it. On the other hand, they can't just take some kid, put him in a room somewhere, and say, we've come up with some, pretext arrest, and now we're just going to go through your whole phone and look for further evidence of a crime. And it's basically an admission that our cell phones, our laptops, our tablets have so much information on them, contain so much data, that there are things that the police, it's basically like searching your house in this day and age. It really is searching your house. In fact, you may have more vital information about yourself accessible in your online files and in your files on your phone than you do just laying about your house. So I don't think the Supreme Court was off the mark on this one. I think it was a very good decision. I think it recognizes that the Fourth Amendment's still alive and well in the technology age. It'd be nice if we would get something similar as to the NSA, of course, which leads to the joke about, and we'll tie this into the IRS here, Edward Snowden probably has the missing emails from Lois Lerner. This IRS scandal, and I think you should be mad about it. You should be upset about it. You should be inquiring about it. 717-916-5189 if you want to weigh in on any of these topics. So if you have an opinion, an attitude, you just don't like Don Stevens, you want to call in and talk about it, 717-916-5189. Long and short of it, the IRS scandal is absolutely and absolutely has to be the most underrated scandal ever, because what we're basically seeing is, and it's very clear, conservative groups were targeted by the IRS. They just paid a civil settlement. They just agreed to pay $50,000 for leaking the donor list to a anti-gay marriage organization. Turns out the IRS leaked the materials to the political opponents. Of course, the IRS originally claimed in court that they must have leaked their own information only to create this lawsuit, because that was the government's position. So, if the government's always right and you're not doing anything wrong, now those of you who actually believe that, then why the hell is the IRS leaking private taxpayer information? Well, it was very politically damaging. They put a donor list out, which included the names of people who gave to this anti-gay marriage organization, as well as the actual tax filings of it. And it was used against them on the internet, and it was made public, and some people were embarrassed and some people were harassed. But nonetheless, there's a theory that when you file your taxes, your information is somehow private. It's actually a 5-year felony for somebody to release it, but for some reason, Eric Holder hasn't found any need to look into it or to investigate it or do anything about it. Although the IRS just settled a civil suit brought by a law professor on behalf of the organization whose tax return was leaked, and they're agreeing to pay $50,000 in actual damages. They can't pay any punitive damages because they can't prove the leak was intentional, because the guy who got the material took the Fifth Amendment, and he still has the Fifth Amendment if and until Eric Holder grants him immunity, which you and I know is never going to happen, because if they did that, he would probably tell us that it was President Obama's right hand at the IRS who gave this material to him. But heaven forbid we admit to any of that. Anyhow, so keep in the context that we know the IRS is leaking confidential taxpayer information to politically damage opponents of Democratic and liberal agendas under President Obama. And keep in mind that it's clear that Lois Lerner took the Fifth as well, and it's clear that her emails mysteriously erased themselves during the relevant time period. And it's clear that despite the prevalence of backups, which we would all have, the IRS claims they didn't. And it's clear they also broke the law because, as protocol, whenever a government agency loses records or data, they're required to immediately notify the National Archives. And, there's a reason for that. That drive that they said, well, we looked at it and we couldn't get anything off of it? Well, the National Archives is supposed to be notified of that leak, and I believe they have a chance to go back in and see if they can help reconstruct it. Because heaven forbid we'd send that drive. They said, the IRS went to great lengths. Great lengths. I'm telling you something right now. They could have mirrored that hard drive. They could have done all kinds of things to it to extract data off of it. And for them to claim that they could not is just absolutely ludicrous, beyond belief. You're on Rominger Radio. Caller, you're on the air. What's your name and location?
Hey, this is GG from the West Shore. How you doing over there?
Good, man. How are you?
Oh, hey, I'm doing all right, Carl. Just listening to the show a little bit this evening, a little bit early. And
sorry about the lightning strike there, dude. I mean, the lightning literally rattled the building, and then we went down for 2 minutes. But what can I do?
Is that what happened? I wasn't sure. It flickered over here on my end too a little bit, and so I wasn't sure if it was my signal or yours or.
Oh, we got. I mean, it shook. So I think the strike was within half a mile.
Holy smokes! At least it didn't knock you out of your boots, right?
No. Yeah. And of course my joke is we could bring back the Sunday show and we could debate whether it was God or nature, right?
Right. Maybe you said something that was off color.
It's possible. It's been done.
Well, hey, listen, I wanted to call real brief, real quick, because I believe a couple of things here I'd like to touch base on is these emails, first of all, with the IRS. I really feel that, and we know, I mean, it's common sense and it's knowledge that backups have backups.
Right.
Google, for instance, they back everything up, several times, because if the information's lost, they're in trouble. It's their business. Just like government. I mean, if your records are lost, like they say they are, then you don't have those records. You wouldn't know what people filed for the past 20 years, because they've taken all that information and have moved it onto computers and such. There's backups. That's, to me, is a lot, just more lies, just another lie on top of the other lies. And also, I'd like to touch base on this, the donor information, like you're saying about the donor information being given. They're talking about political parties, that it should be known who's donating to campaigns.
Right.
And I'm a firm believer of that. I really feel that that is something that the public needs to be aware of, because if you would see who's donating to these political campaigns, then you would see why the laws are the way that they are. You'll see why things are being changed to help these people who've made large contributions to political campaigns. Mm-hmm. For instance, healthcare. Healthcare is the largest contributor to presidential campaigns, the healthcare industry. So you look at the VA and you say, well, why were people not, I seen yesterday a scandal about Social Security numbers. People were supposedly still alive when in reality they were dead, and they're paying all this money for these people that are, supposedly dead still alive. Sort of like the welfare thing here in PA yesterday. So you figure, the government's still sending all this money to these healthcare companies for people who've died, but they have to keep them alive on record so that they can continue to send that money over to them. And, who's benefiting from that in the end? It's basically stealing from your own people. Whenever you continue to pay these tax dollars to take care of these veterans that have died to healthcare companies who are paying for your political campaigns.
Right. And I just saw a thing, there was especially the other day now, where some hospitals are failing to mark that the person was deceased in the folder.
Yes.
Because if they return for a follow-up visit, then it counts against you. But if they don't return for a follow-up visit, then it helps your numbers. But if they're deceased, they're obviously not coming back. But if you exclude deceased, it helps your numbers with Medicare.
Right, so that you can continue to get money and benefits, and you can continue to financially be comfortable. I mean, the more people that you have alive that are going to come back possibly, then, that's more money that can pad the system and the program, so to speak.
Yeah.
If you don't have people coming back, then they're going to say, well, hey, maybe we shouldn't give this much money, towards this program because we don't have enough people coming back. Well, you're taking away from other programs that are needed, and it's not fair to those that are in need and need the help. But, I always go back to the people rely on the government for help, and that's not really what the government was for. The government isn't put in to take care of you. It's not put into place to take care of you, feed you, house you. It's not what the government's for. And that's one of the problems is a lot of people they do take advantage of it, and it breaks the country. It really does. But who knows?
I don't disagree. What else did I want to talk? Oh, I'll tell you, Gigi, I found something interesting. Let me find this here for you.
Sure.
Oh, so I was reading that apparently, because this is how the world works, everybody's telling us that the scientists tell us that there's global climate change, and since the scientists say it must be true, and blah, blah, blah. Well, it turns out this kind of hysteria goes on periodically, and here's one. Between 1865 and 1875, the rain follows the plow. Journalists, scientists, government officials, you name it, Americans were convinced through their farming they'd goaded Mother Nature into providing more water. And they even went on to say that one of these guys, thought railroad self-encouraged rainfall, as did power lines. You got me on speakerphone, brother?
No, I do not.
I'm just getting a little feedback.
You know why? Because I have a headset on.
Gotcha.
And you might be getting feedback from yourself coming out of my ear into my mic.
Got it.
So I apologize.
That's cool.
I'll turn you down a little bit, then you won't hear yourself. Go ahead.
Elliot thought the railroad itself encouraged rainfall, as did power lines. That may seem this is from the article. That may seem crazy to you, but it somehow made sense to the hallowed Smithsonian Institution. It published its writings in its annual report in 1870. So what was going on was they believed between 1865 and 1875 that farming in the Midwest on the Great Plains was actually creating the rain, and that they were creating climate change through farming. And it was accepted by the government and by industry and by journalists and published in the Smithsonian. And if you didn't believe it, you were an idiot. So this just proves my point. We're once again at that point where climate scientists tell us it's absolutely true. You have to believe it. If you don't, you're an idiot. It's interesting. Of course, by the 1890s, they were blowing up dynamite because they felt the vibrations may help create rain. But again, if you didn't accept that science at the time, then you were a complete crank and an idiot. So,
right.
I just thought that was an interesting little
It depends on what they're saying. The rain follows the plow. Well, I mean, in what aspect? I mean, because, you know, if you dig a trench and you pour water into it, it's going to follow the trench.
Yeah. No, they're saying literally that farming created rain.
No, there's somebody was on something back then. That might have been the year that mushrooms was invented or something. They found a mushroom.
Yeah, I mean, I just thought it was an interesting little find there, you know, because it goes back to...
Yeah, I saw you posted that a little bit earlier today.
Yeah, exactly.
And I was reading that, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. But how much scientific... What did they have to work with as scientists in 1865?
Well, I mean...
What type of... You know what I mean? They didn't really have anything too much to work with.
No, but I don't point it out from the fact that we'd all agree that the science is probably better today than it was then. But what happens is at all ages, we've accepted science as absolute. And as we've learned, as time goes on, we learn more. We realize how juvenile or simplified our beliefs about the world.
When I listen to a scientist, Carl, and scientist finds, you know what I listen for? I listen to who paid for the scientists to look into this.
Right.
Who paid for the research, and do they have the benefit out of this research if it's what they want everyone to hear. That's how I look at science, unless it's something that, you know, I can actually do with my own hands, my own eyes, and see and, you know, confirm a little bit more. Hearsay scientists, I mean, everybody has to pay for the funding, and they pay for a reason to hope that you're going to find in their favor. And if I give you enough money, you'll find whatever you want to find.
Yeah, and there's some bias there. There was an interesting study done that I read about. Of course, I don't know who funded this study, but the study said that they took students who were accounting students and they gave them a problem. They broke them into 3 groups. And they were all given the same problem, and they were to value a business. And 1/3 were told they represented the seller, 1/3 were told they represented the buyer, and the other 1/3 were told they were hired jointly by the buyer and seller. And then they took the average value. And interestingly, the people who came up with the seller had on average the highest values for the business. The people who represented the buyer had the lowest, and the people who thought they were representing both came up right in between. And the joke was there was a referential bias just by being told that, even though you didn't even actually represent anybody, even though it was hypothetical. Mm-hmm. So just being told that you represent a buyer or seller causes you to value the business more in line with what your expected customer would like to hear. Yeah. It's
mental. It's just like if your boss comes to you and says, hey, you've done a hell of a job today.
Which
this week
she does
month,
every day, of course.
Right. And then you're going to feel like, you're like so great. You feel good about yourself. And you want to continue, and if you're a proud worker, that is, and I would think that if you're doing that well, you are a proud worker. So you're going to do more. You're going to have better things and do better. And I was talking to someone yesterday about this because I do sales and I'm in sales, and we were talking about motivation. Motivation is important, because if you don't motivate, then you really don't get anything. You have to be motivational, because that's what people want. People were driven by motivation and, being told they're doing a good job. Whether or not it really pays the bills at the end of the day, it's still nice to hear and be appreciated, as far as that goes. So motivational is a big part of it. You can motivate anybody by really telling them whatever you want them to hear. If someone wants to hear something positive and you tell them and lead them in that right direction, they're going to be very motivated to do whatever, the task is at hand.
Right.
So, I mean, same with the farmers. I mean, they needed people probably to feed. I mean, what was going on in 1865? I'm not a historian. Is there maybe something going on during them 10 years in the country that we needed more crops? Was it a way to push, farmers to generate more crops for those 10 years to feed more people? I'm not sure if there was any wars going on at the time. But, maybe they needed extra food for war or, whatever the case may be, to drive people to say, hey, the rain follows the crops, so we need you to plant more crops to get more rain.
Yeah, and there's an article, oh boy, I think it's in Wired magazine, and it basically says, hey, the railroad companies needed to sell a lot of the land holdings they had. The government had an interest in expanding people, and when these guys came out and started saying this stuff, it sort of fit the model of what some people wanted to hear, so they ran with it. And, of course, it turned out the rain had really started to fall in the plains, and then all of a sudden in 1875 it started to dry up, and then there was about a decade and a half of drought, and all these people were, living in subsistence farming in the dust at that point.
Right. So, I mean, was there a push to sell land?
Yeah.
Was there?
Right. That's what it was about.
Is there something financially to gain? But like I said, the scientists did this study. So scientifically, they're going to say to rainfall. So here we're going to sell some crops. It's a way of pushing land and actually creating loans for who? The Fed.
Right.
So I mean, it goes back to the beginning of time. They've been. If you really want it all adds up. It's a big long line. It's like a road. I can go out here on this road, and I can end up in California, I can end up in Alabama, or I can end up in Alaska. All roads lead to the same place, as long as you make the right turn. If you see what I mean.
I hear you, brother.
So that's really how I look at it. Excuse me, prospectively. But you never know. They could have been doing a good thing.
Well, but, and it obviously helped expand people into the West, but it was just lousy advice and a lousy scientific theory that was espoused as strong science and an obvious, and if you you could use a gold rush, okay? You say, oh my God, there's gold out west, da 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 da. No one lives out west, so you get a population to shift, create more room, maybe expand your area, grow the country, whatever you want to do, for everybody to go out there and find gold. Right.
I mean, you never know. So I have no idea. But Carl, I'm gonna get off of here.
All right, Gigi. Appreciate having you on the air, my friend. I appreciate
it. Hey, you have a good evening, Carl. Keep up the good work.
All right. Yeah, I'm gonna get engaged here pretty soon.
Oh yeah, are you serious? I didn't know if it was like one of Howard Stern things, like you're just trying to generate some listeners.
Well, yeah, hey, I met the girl at a strip club. What's the big deal?
Are you really getting engaged?
No, I can't tell you that yet. You have to wait and you have to listen and find out.
Oh, so he's going. That's right. Never mind. I forgot we're on air now. Okay.
I drugged this girl out of a strip club. You'll like her.
You drug her out of the strip club?
I drug her out of the strip club.
Well, any female you drag out of a strip club has to be worthy. That's for sure.
Well, I agree. And hey, listen, I have nothing against strippers. In fact, I have a lot of things in favor. I mean, a lot of ways I'm in favor of them.
I agree. I believe in strippers too. I mean, they do a lot of great in society. I'm with you on that. I think
I'm laughing. I'm laughing because last week you were on telling me you don't believe in God, but this week you're on telling me you believe in strippers. I love it.
Yeah, I can see strippers. I can't see God. You know what I'm saying? So,
well, and the more strippers you see, the more you believe.
We go to strip club on Sunday. How about that? Sunday strip club.
Sunday. We could do the show live from there.
Live from over in Harrisburg. Yeah. I don't even know the name of the joint.
Yeah, sure you don't.
Live from...
when we walk in the front door, the guy's going to be like, hi, Gigi. And you're going to be like, oh, I don't know. He knows me.
No, he said Carl. He didn't say Gigi. I mean, that's what I'll say to him. I'm just with this guy.
That's right. All right, brother. Thanks for calling in. I appreciate it.
Have a good night. I'll talk to you later.
All right, man. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
717-916-5189. Now, of course, we were not trying to disparage strippers there. So if you're a stripper and you're listening, Avery, do not take any offense at that because it's just the sort of thing that, you were just having a little fun at the expense. Just like making fun of coal miners or, what other jobs can you make fun of? There's not too many. Car salesmen, lawyers, process servers, those types. Can't throw waiters and waitresses in there. I love waiters and waitresses. I always love hanging out with restaurant people because there's nothing better than running into one on a Sunday night and getting drug out into their world. Because remember, Sunday night's their Friday. Okay, so back to all seriousness. We were talking about the Supreme Court, and we're talking about this decision. We're talking about your data being safe on your cell phone. That's a big win. Big win for privacy, big win for the Fourth Amendment. I hope you'll appreciate that once in a while that happens. If anybody out there, what I would call the law enforcement types, are going crazy, why this softens the law. This softens the ability of the police to investigate crime. Well, you know what? The papers? Can we see the papers, please? Yes, turn your Jewish neighbors in and be done with it, you frickin' closet fascist, Nazi, would-be conservative, Ku Klux Klanman. Yeah, that's what I think you are. Really, that's how I feel about some of these guys. They claim to be conservatives, and conservatives should not be pro-government. But if somebody's prosecuting somebody, or somebody's claiming somebody's a homosexual, or somebody's claiming somebody's a pedophile, or somebody's claiming, fill in the blank, they're all lining up to throw stones. Bible in one hand, stone in the other. It says in here, the casters, no, ye who is a sin caster, that part doesn't actually count. It's like, it was actually in Leviticus. It's in the same portion that says that you can't eat bacon. Yeah, that's why I can throw stones now. Okay, well, dummy, that's actually in the New Testament, but we won't go into it. We may have to get the atheist on here to quote the Bible to these guys. Anyhow, I digress. But in all seriousness, this Supreme Court decision is a strong, positive Fourth Amendment decision. The Supreme Court was careful in their logic. They recognized, by the way, that this was going to weaken some law enforcement functions. And John Roberts said, privacy comes at a cost, because he wrote the opinion. Privacy comes at a cost. That is a great phrase. I am glad that he wrote it. It's not original. It's not the first time anybody's ever said it. But it's a recognition that our rights, our liberties, our restraint on government come at a cost. But freedom is not free. And while freedom requires some responsibility, it also requires a great deal of protection from the government. Look, this is another example of the government. Well, we can do it. We are going to look through your cell phone. This was not like some rogue cop. This was police officers everywhere. This is lawyers who work for the government saying, hey, we should be allowed to do this. We want to do this. We want to use this evidence in criminal prosecutions. We want to be able to go through people's cell phones when we want to be able to go through people's cell phones. We want to just thumb through your photos, thumb through your contacts, thumb through your texts, and see if there's anything in there that might help us prosecute you, because we now have an incident to an arrest. And you may say, well, I'll never be arrested. Guess what? You might be walking down the street with too many beers in you, Don. You might be walking down the street and some guy attacks you and then accuses you of fighting him, and the police arrest both of you. Can happen, folks. You might get in a car accident and be taken to the hospital, and the police may choose to arrest you thinking for some reason that you were high or under the influence of alcohol when you weren't, but they'd have probable cause to believe you were based in part upon the accident, and as part of that arrest, collect your cell phone and then go through it. Dear John Adams, we would like to meet secretly Tuesday night to discuss the problem with the British. Hashtag Redcoat. Send, right? Well, that's kind of the idea, folks. The idea is you should have some freedom of communication, some freedom amongst your things and your effects, which include your smartphone or your flip phone and the data in it. And the police shouldn't get free fishing expeditions. So if you're a police officer out there who thinks you should be able to have free fishing expeditions, to hell with you, I say. That's right, to hell with you. I think Don's creating trouble here. I'm just following the Facebook feed. I've put out on Facebook, I'm going to ask some girl to marry me tonight. So here live on the air. So make sure you get all your friends to tune in. we'll do it at precisely some point in the future here during the show. So make sure you spread the word, share the show on Facebook. If you're on Facebook right now, share a link to the show, invite your friends to tune in, Twitter it out, read it, dug it, post it, stumble upon it, whatever you need to do. Get it out there. Now, we'll have a little fun. Listen to, if only you weren't married, you would be first on my list, but alas, just the way it's going to be. I took my son golfing the other day, by the way, and we had a lot of fun. What I like about taking a 4-year-old golfing is he doesn't do anything, because he has a golf club I gave him, but that's not enough. He's not very interested in that. He'd rather just run around. But then when he watches me hit a shot, he always goes, "Great shot, Dad." I shot, I hit the ball decently. And he's like, "Great shot, Dad." And then a little later, I hit the ball into the woods. And he's like, "Great shot, Dad." And I'm like, "Yeah." And then I was up at the green. I was about 10 yards off the green. And I pitched it up there. And it rolled right across the green and fell right in the hole. And he's like, "Great shot, Dad." And I was like, it's actually a better than great shot, boy. Oh, goodness gracious me. What can you do with the little ones, By the way, I think we should try to get my mom on here because we get a little update from her. Now, of course, we pre-recorded her last week, but I think it'd be more fun to get her on here live. But I got to figure out how to do this. So, I'm very slow with the Skype thing because I wonder if you could use. Yeah, you can't say. I was going to try to use the little keypad, but it doesn't work that way. Now, do you think she'll be awake at this hour of the night at her age? I don't know. We shall find out. All right, we'll give her a little ringy ring here and see what happens. I don't know if she'll answer or not. Yeah, I have to get my mom in here. We can check out her garden. We'll see what the weather is up there. And Don, can I give Avery's number out on the air? Is that what you want me to do with it? Make it available to all the guys out there? I think Don Stevens is trying to sell his daughter here live on the air. We'll see. I'm just trying to get the old lady on the phone here.
Hello.
Hey, Mother, we're on the air. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm glad you're on the air. So, what's going on?
Well, we got a little thunder and lightning storm going on here. We got bumped off the air for about 2 minutes because of a nearby lightning strike.
Wow. That's we've had some big thunder boomers here. They don't last long, but they sure come through and sure drop the rain. Wow.
Yeah, I know. I know. Well, let me ask this. Let me ask this question: Did you see the Supreme Court today says the police cannot search your cell phone if you're pulled over? Did you hear that?
I heard that.
Yeah,
yep.
It's a big win for the Fourth Amendment and kind of coming up to date. Basically, say the police were taking the position, all around the nation. We can just dig into your phone because we have you, and I think it's a good thing. And slow them down a little bit.
Oh, I think so too. It's not that you don't want them to catch the bad guy, but you certainly don't want them to violate people's, ability to have some privacy.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
I mean, it's a two-edged sword there, but probably with the Supreme Court saying that kind of ended whether it was really good or bad, and it's kind of set the tone for things now.
Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see. I mean, I think it won't dramatically change law enforcement because they still have the warrant available after the fact. So.
That's true.
So what else is going on?
True.
Anything we need to know about? We just want to check in on you. I know people like to figure out what you're up to.
I think in my rock garden, I think I found some poison ivy, so now I got to go get some spray to put on the leaves so that it kills it.
Well, that sounds organic.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry, but poison ivy, I don't want anybody reaching into it or, and I'm usually pulling weeds here and there, and that's how I discovered it. So I quickly came in and washed my hands with Fell's naphtha soap.
That's right.
Just in case.
That'll take the poison ivy right off. And the skin.
Yep.
It's amazing that you even you're the only person I know that stocks that stuff, Mother. I mean...
I have a star for years now, and I'm not sure...
You keep it right next to
find another one.
You keep it right next to the bag bomb, right?
Right, absolutely.
Just in case.
Yep, well, we have all our remedies that you carry on from generation to generation.
I have some.
And there's a reason for it because they work. A lot of them do.
I have some horsehound growing, actually. So you know.
You do.
I do.
Wonderful.
I do have some horsehound.
Wonderful.
Yes.
Are you going to make me some cough drops?
I can certainly arrange for that. I will harvest some horsehound and we'll figure out what you need to do to make a cough drop out of it.
Oh, that would be wonderful.
Yes.
Those were my favorite when I was a kid. I always liked it when Mom got them and Grandpa brought them home actually. But those were my favorite to have to, if I had to have a throat lozenge or.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyways.
Very, very good.
And I don't know what else is going on. Just busy.
All right. Well, we need some recipes, so I'll bug you for some recipes here. You get them out here, and we'll get them to the listeners because they all want to fool around with the recipes.
Okay.
So.
How about this coming weekend? I send you some.
Yes, because then Sunday we can
all
bring
right.
it back on to describe the dish.
Okay. All right.
So,
good.
All right. Well,
Good. So,
I don't want to keep you long because I know you're busy. You got stuff to do.
yeah, I do.
I got to drink beer, and then I'm going to talk to some girl here on the air pretty shortly. I think her father's anxious for me to get her on the air, so we'll see.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
all right.
Very random.
So, all right.
How would you feel
Take
if I married a stripper? Would you ever be opposed to that or no?
That you got to live with the person. I don't.
Well, okay. Well, if that's the only criterion, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. That might be a plus.
I'm not sure I would like that, but that's not up to me to decide.
All right, well, we're just checking, because
Okay.
We
all right.
We might be talking with one here on the air shortly, so we're just going to check it out.
Okay. All right.
I'll explain it all later. It's too lengthy to explain.
Okay. Well, listen, you just take your time and someday and explain it to me.
Yeah, take your time. Not anything rash. Oh no.
All right. I'm going to say good night, and you have a good show. Okay.
All right. Love you, Mom.
Love you too. Bye.
All right. Bye. Yeah. So we tried. I think Don Stevens was trying to call, and I'm not putting him on with my mother at the same time. Are you kidding? Are you do I look crazy? Do I look insane? Let's see here. Recent calls. I don't know. Let's see. Recent calls. I think that was Don. It probably was Don. We'll see if it was Don or not. We'll call him. I'm pretty sure that was Don. Don, was that you calling? I'm going to try to call you back. Let me try to get you on the air here. I think that was Don. Because...
No, you know who this is?
Gigi, were you calling back?
No, you know what happened? You called your mom, and then you called me, and then I tried to call you back because I didn't realize who it was calling me.
Oh, yeah, you thought...
So who is this number? So I'm calling, and I'm like, oh,
Gigi.
Thank God, that was Carl.
Gigi, you're back on the air now. Now, that's a great... People were just dying. I knew Don wouldn't actually call. Don wants me to call his daughter up. I'm not going to do that. Yeah.
Your mom was so cute. She was trying to be so politically correct.
Oh, I know. Is she crazy?
Whatever you got.
You got to live with it. But I'm like, well, live with it. I mean, if you're not upset about it, then hey, I'll live with her. What the hell? She's a stripper.
Exactly. Go do what you got to do. I'll talk to you a little later.
All right, boss. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.
My poor mother. I don't know why you guys mock her like that. And Joe Calura should be definitely listening. I hope he is because I think he enjoys busting on Dawn. So I was so talking about the Supreme Court and all kinds of important things, and now my mind is just lost. Yes, Mike, we are playing Phone Tag. Why don't you call in, Mike, and I can play Phone Tag with you too. I don't know exactly how that happened. I must have redialed him. I must have pocket dialed GG off my Skype. I'm not sure how you pocket dial off Skype, but it's a big laptop to put in your pocket. But it could happen. I've been thinking a lot about. It's funny, after we had the show about dogs going to heaven, I started watching Facebook, and I think every day somebody's posting on that their pet is dead, dying, being put down, incurring a $10,000 vet bill. And I figure all those people are probably absolutely sure they're going to be reunited with their pet in heaven. So I sure hope they're right. It'll be very disappointing, to think your dog's going to be there, and you get up there and you're like, Fido, where are you? Oh, you're here, Fido. Oh, thank goodness you're here. Forgot completely about my brother. Guess he's in hell. No, I don't remember if I have a brother or not. But I am reunited with Fido. I don't know. Some of these things, people's priorities are screwed up. Let me editorialize for a minute about the pet thing, right? So in this country, a lot of people are in love with their horse because a horse is a horse, unless of course. And in other countries, people routinely eat their horses. I mean, I don't know. Is it how much you love the animal that matters? I don't know. I just find it interesting because I keep thinking of the guy who told me the deer would be giving me the stinky eye in heaven and all the deer that'll be floating around up there. I mean, I think I personally, sent 100 of those things to the afterlife. So who knows? Who knows? And I've eaten most of them, by the way. I give a lot of that meat away. But I do have one shoulder left to cook up, so I may get that done at some point. We should get my brother on sometime, by the way, talk about how he makes hams out of the deer. That would be interesting, too. He's kind of a pretty good, handy guy with the smoking. Okay, so let's go back to Lois Lerner and the IRS for a minute. Why am I obsessed with this? I'm obsessed with this because nobody else is. No, that's not true. Glenn Beck is. Some of the other right-wing radio guys are. But the American public is getting a snooze fest out of it because the press isn't doing anything with it, when in fact it's just diabolical. It's an absolute wholesale naked use of the IRS, the taxing power under the Constitution, to beat up on the little guy, to beat up on the people that the politicians don't like. And the Tea Party movement is just very, very threatening to the other side. Now, oh, by the way, that reminds me, there was a little election down there in Louisiana, a little runoff election, and I see the Tea Party candidate lost because the Democrats rallied on side of the mainstream guy. Now, of course, last time we were on our show here, people were trying to claim the Tea Party was Louisiana? I think it was pretty sure where the runoff was. They're trying to say that the Tea Party fixed the vote, or maybe it was Mississippi. Yeah, Louisiana, Mississippi, same difference. They both get hit by a hurricane. Bobby Jindal's in Louisiana. Mississippi's like Hallie Barbour, whoever the heck it is these days. Long story short, yeah, okay, here we go. Challenger Chris McDaniel and veteran Thad Cochran plunged into a 3-week campaign. And McDaniel, final narrow win, issued a statement for his campaign, cited his first place finish as evidence of groundswell of energy behind his campaign to bring true conservative agenda to Washington, D.C. But then, during the runoff, the second election, Cochran came back and won it, and a bunch of Democrats voted for Cochran, and that's created some issues. Caller, where are you, and who are you, and welcome to the air.
Dwayne from E-Town.
Hey, Dwayne, how you been, man?
Good. Talk about the Lois Lerner thing. I don't know. To me, I think about it pretty simple. This country, we have a book of rules. Why don't everybody follow it? I'm sure people broke laws. Why don't we charge them and try them and sentence them?
Well, you know what? Here's the problem. The prosecutorial discretion rests with the Attorney General, who's part of the administration that abused the power. And so I suspect unless they unearth the smoking gun, which is probably one of the missing emails, they're going to continue to say that this is a Republican witch hunt and there's nothing to it.
Right. So what we need is an attorney general that we elect instead of appointed by the administration.
That would be a good start. I mean, look here in Pennsylvania. I thought, and we can talk about this for a minute. Let's talk about Kane's report on Corbett, okay? Her report came out and basically says, Kane's report basically says, no political influence by Corbett. In other words, he didn't screw up the Sandusky investigation for political purposes. But she does say that there were inexcusable delays and there were problems in the investigation and things weren't handled in a timely manner. And says some of the choices made may have been within sound prosecutorial discretion, but nonetheless, things could have advanced a lot faster. And I thought her report was very fair. She could have simply just said the delay was caused by political tampering. Instead, she said, no, it looks like early on the low-level investigators didn't do everything they could or didn't understand some of the things they could have done and didn't make the right choices, and that led to a bad proposition here. I thought that was a fair report. I mean, now, did I expect it to exonerate No, and I'm also so that's sort of the same idea. An elected attorney general who's got some independence. There's always politics there too. They're trying to hurt each other, help each other, whatever. But they still stand one rung removed. And I thought her report proves that you can have a fair evaluation.
Right. So what would it take, I guess, in this country to get an elected attorney general?
Probably a constitutional amendment to make it an elected office of the federal system.
Oh my God, that's huge.
Yeah, it would be.
Yeah, that's huge.
It would be a huge change. But it would be an interesting change, and here in Pennsylvania, that's what we did years ago, and it seems to work. By the way, while we're still on the Sandusky thing for a minute, I wish all this grand jury material could be made public, because not that I want the victims who testified to have their grand jury material made public from that aspect, but on the other hand, you can't really evaluate, and any time the government's using a grand jury investigation, in my experience, it's almost impossible for the public to have any idea of what was really necessary or unnecessary or appropriate or inappropriate. They're saying in the report, well, the grand jury stuff was appropriate and it was a prudent prosecutorial step. Investigating grand juries in Pennsylvania are incredibly slow processes, and they're incredibly useful in some instances and an incredible waste of time in others. And I personally, from knowing what I know, without being, because I can't give out any of the details, would just say that it was a colossal waste of time, and that in fact that report out from Kane isn't exactly on point with Moulton, whoever wrote it. If it were me, I would come to the conclusion, based on what I know, that it was unnecessary, that was part of the unnecessary delay, and or if they wanted to continue to do it, it shouldn't have slowed things down. But they won't give you the raw information, so there's no way for the public or independent people to actually evaluate that. And that's a problem with this whole grand jury system, is they'll claim they did everything, or they'll claim it was fair, or they'll claim it was inclusive, or they'll claim everybody was heard from. But then when you ask them, well, who said what? They'll go, well, secrecy, we can't tell you. Welcome to Kafka-esque black box law. It's called the Pennsylvania grand jury system.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. There's a lot of things there I've questioned over the years, especially when it comes election time. I was just thinking, though, this evening I listened to your podcast of, I think it was Wednesday night, you were talking about some more legal stuff. And I just was thinking, in some ways, the Attorney General is almost a more important position to get correct than maybe in the state level or governor, or in the federal level a president or vice president. Because an attorney general, if you had one that would, follow the law of the land and proceed accordingly, a lot of the corruption in government would probably start going away.
Yeah, well...
You understand the point I'm trying to make? I do.
And, of course, now here's the other question, though. It's been said that elected attorney generals also do a lot of things to make sure they get elected,
Well, right. They have the same problems, or not problems, but whatever. Yeah, it's the same obstacles of any other elected official.
Yeah, exactly. And so
the bottom line is the people's choice isn't going to be the guy that gets the job.
But the interesting thing is, I will say, even here in Pennsylvania again, because we have two separate seats of power there, we've had some good results, or at least some checks and balances. The governor wants to sell the lottery. Okay, I think we're back on the air now. At least according to my show clock, we're back on the air. Yeah, so Dwayne, sorry we lost you there, buddy, but I think the internet took another one of these nice, what would we call it, electrical storm hits here. But I think that'll be the last of the evening, because it seems like the storm is rolling out. But you never know, You know how it is in these crazy times. So anyhow, long story short, what we were just talking about, if you had an attorney general in the United States who was independently elected, it would create a whole separate office, a whole new set of politics. It would be an incredibly powerful position. and that person could then play against the president. And at the state level, we just saw that. For instance, Kane just nixes a contract because she can that Corbett wants to sign. On the other hand, it's not clear that the founders wanted the executive branch to be fragmented. And so there might be an argument that overly fragmenting the executive branch is adding a whole additional level of complication to government that the founders didn't really intend, and therefore really isn't fair, or at least is harmful in a way that really unfairly prevents the president or the executive from doing their function. So it would create an additional balance of power. It may create an independent prosecutor, but it may also create an office where people could score political points simply by deep-sixing something the president's doing or digging around more independently. So maybe there's an argument that the Attorney General working at the pleasure of the president is important because it creates an additional power protection. I think. Yes, Don, production team fired. No, Don, that was called lightning. It's God. God had created the lightning. Yes, Don, God threw lightning bolts down. Maybe it was Zeus. Maybe it was Allah. Maybe it was Jehovah. I don't know. But some Yahoo knocked off my power with a lightning bolt. How about now, GG? Is it good now? Just let me know. I think it's better now. What's going on is this weather just does not work well with us. Now, I also said before on this show, I need blame it on the rain. That's right. I was hoping at some point to get this thing moved into a thumbs up. All right, thanks, Gigi. I want to get this thing moved into a studio where we can get some hard lines on it and lower the downtime. But actually tonight our downtime was completely based on the weather because everything else is firing copacetically even as we speak. Of course, I cross my fingers. It just has to last for one more hour. That's it. Or maybe not even an hour because, as you know, it's my prerogative to leave early whenever I want. See, I just laugh at the stuff you guys post on Facebook. If you're listening to this show and you're not on Facebook at the same time, you're missing half the content. And it's not me. It's the sycophants who post on there all the weird stuff. Don still wants me to call his daughter up. I said I was going to propose to her on the air, so I feel like I'm probably leaving her at the altar right now. Avery, I'm sorry. I don't mean to leave you standing at the altar yet. I'm working up my courage to call you. My mom's not sure. She said I have to make my own choices about you, so I'm just not sure where she stands on you. So maybe we should call her back up and ask her again. What were the other big issues in the news? Well, the IS is still raining terror down on Iraq, right? And I guess the good news is there good news to that one? Is there any good news to the ISIS? We're going to do some things about it, maybe. We're going to be back in Iraq. I don't know. Oh, yeah, by the way, John Boehner is going to file some lawsuits over Obama's use of executive orders. That's another interesting topic. Talking about fragmenting the presidency. It's been argued, and I don't disagree, that the President Obama and Bush before him and recent presidents have begun to use the executive order as if it were, toilet paper. So what the article says here. Speaker John Boehner announced Wednesday that he intended to initiate a federal lawsuit seeking to declare President Obama's executive orders as an unconstitutional power grab. He declined to spell out which actions would be addressed in the suit. Obama made an executive decision in 2012 not to deport children of illegal immigrants. This month he issued an order to allow the EPA to regulate carbon emissions from power plants. Those have come after the Senate and the House have deadlocked on various issues. That's a good question, actually. Boehner's saying he's not faithfully executed the law, but there's a lot of, here's Congress's problem. They want to sue the president, right, because he's not faithfully executing the law. If I was a court if I were a judge, I'd be inclined to say, listen, boys, girls, ladies and gentlemen of the Senate, of the House, of the Grand Committee, you guys can regulate the president anytime you want. It's called articles of impeachment. Impeach him, try him, remove him. We don't have to have a court decision on this. It's your legislative prerogative, if you think the president is committing illegal acts, to remove him or her from office. And while we can certainly, on a case-by-case case-by-case basis, in a particular question of law, strike down an executive order as either exceeding the presidential powers or otherwise being whatever, well, we have the power to say it's ultra vires or it's unconstitutional as applied to the situation or void ab initio. We don't have the power to say the president has done anything wrong per se, nor by striking down any one act that isn't actually in controversy. A person with standing would be a person who was harmed by it, and that's the person who should be bringing it, not you, Boner. I think that's what the courts are going to say. They're going to say, besides, you have a great remedy, because standing, part of the analysis of standing is there any other way to challenge this? And when Boehner says he should have standing, the courts are going to say, no, anybody who's aggrieved by the presidential executive orders, directly aggrieved and harmed, not thinks they're harmed, not could be harmed, not might be harmed, not feels like the president is following the law and they're an American citizen and taxpayer and they're entitled to relief, harmed, can bring those lawsuits. But you, boys, girls, ladies and gentlemen in Congress, have the power of impeachment. And if you don't have the cojones to bring articles of impeachment or the votes to bring articles of impeachment, because you all did such a great job impeaching Bill Clinton, too damn bad. Yeah, I think that's going to be Boehner's answer. So, John Boehner, be prepared. Be prepared to get an answer you don't like. I quite frankly think that's what I expect. Oh, my goodness. Okay, what's the other one? Facebook not so diverse. Facebook, for the first time, released statistics on the makeup of its workforce that do not reflect the demographic of its users around the globe. I eat at a Greek restaurant pretty often. I don't think they meet the demographics of many of their customers except their Greek customers. What does that mean? Ooh, I can't go there. It's bad. They need to, if they're going to have 3 Latinos eating there, they need to have a Latino waiter. And if they're going to have a lot of women eating there, they must have a female owner. And if they're going to have blacks eating there, they're going to have a black guy washing dishes. I mean, what is it that they're trying to tell us? That the makeup of your staff has to be somehow comporting with the people who work in your location? Caller, you're on the air. This is Carl. Where you at and where you from? Who you at and who you at and where you from?
This is Lucinda, and I am in Mountjoy. Well, the storm
Mountjoy,
is just
that's right.
hitting us right now.
Is the storm just rolling your way? Yeah. Well, we sent it.
Yeah,
I kicked it right in the. I kicked it right in the ass and said, "Go get her."
You're creating storms everywhere on Facebook, throwing them my way.
So, what do you want to talk about? Tell me what's going on. What do you need to know? What did I say wrong? What did I do this time?
Oh my God! I don't know if I have all that prepared. I have a list somewhere, but I'm not. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well,
everybody has a list. Yeah.
I mean, I asked my mom about stripper wife on the air, and I'm not sure how she felt about that, but I think she was saying no.
I know, I'm excited about the announcement. You never know. If you ask her personally and it's heartfelt, then I think I'm fighting for you.
Oh, yeah. I actually just want to marry Don, but, I have to get to him somehow.
Who doesn't?
Yeah, who doesn't?
That would be exciting.
Oh, yeah, who doesn't? That's a good question. No, I actually think his current wife doesn't.
That was perfect. I'm not even kidding you, and I don't... This is Don. When I heard he was married, I really was shocked. And I don't mean that in the mean way. I just was very surprised. I love him in the mean way, but no, I'm just kidding, Don. I know he's probably listening.
Yeah. If you call it listening. He kind of hears things. His reactions aren't always rational, so I'm not sure he heard them so much as he reacted to them. But
I agree with that. I read some of his posts. Well, I don't know. I really actually didn't have anything specifically that you were talking about. I actually wanted to understand, and I don't know how much you have read about it or have looked into it. The illegal children, the young, I don't know if they're infants, but they're young, like 65,000 illegal children immigrants. I really wanted to understand that better. I know you usually up on things.
Well, Obama's basically said we're not going to deport illegal immigrant kids. So,
but what was what's the deal with them bringing them over and just like dropping them off? I didn't understand all that.
Well, I mean, basically right now, as it stands under President Obama's regime, if you can make it to the United States, you and your family. Now, if your kid's born on American soil, this is different. If your kid's born on American soil, they're an American, okay? They can't be deported. They belong here because that's what the Constitution says. But if you bring your 1-year-old over with you, your 12-year-old over with you, and you get deported, they're basically saying, we'll deport the parents, but we won't deport the kids. Two problems with that. One is, I mean, I understand the kids did nothing wrong, right? And their parents brought them over, and they're not culpable as in the sense that their parents are. But keeping them here without parental support is going to tax our system exponentially. And a cynical person like me might say that that's intentional, because what the president wants to do is create a position where states are going to start saying, wait a minute, quit deporting the parents too. Leave the parents here because it's cheaper for us to have these illegal immigrants stay with their kid than it is for us to have the kid become a ward of the state or ward of the federal government and require all the social service help, foster care, or whatever else is necessary. So I can't see a rational reason to not send the kids home with their parents who are not citizens and can't be citizens through the illegal process. I just don't see it. I see it really as a way to force an issue, which is, okay, if we're keeping the kids, then maybe we should just keep the parents too.
Well, yeah, I mean, the burden on society would be a lot, but I mean, I just not even on a level like that, just ripping, I don't want to say ripping families apart because, you know, the people chose to come over here. I mean, it ultimately is their, I guess, fault, you know, for bringing your kid over here when you know the consequences. But, like, what benefit would any of that do? I think that they should be sent with their parents. I know that they didn't do anything wrong. I know it's, you know.
Well, right, that's what I'm saying. It's a fallacy because, you know, listen, I mean, so when I was a practicing lawyer, I get all these clients that told me they were moving to, and it changed over the years. At one point it was Florida, at another point it was North Carolina. Everybody was moving to Florida because there's jobs. Everybody's moving to North Carolina because there's jobs. You know, whatever, fill in the blank. It's great there. And they would leave with their kid and move there, and there'd be a custody fight or whatever. And then in a year they'd be back anyhow because, of course, their well-formulated plan was there's jobs. They'd go down there. They didn't have a job, and they'd have to come home. And so you didn't leave the kid down there because it makes sense for the kid to return, even though the parent made a bad move. You return the kid with the parent because the kid needs the parent, and the parent has a duty of support to the kid. It's just no rational reason when we change it from state lines to international borders to say we're going to let the kids stay behind. What Obama's essentially doing, so what happens when they turn 18? We deport them? Okay, we kept you here at 4 and didn't let you go back to Mexico with your parents. I guess the parents could optionally take them. But, you know, listen, for foreign people, I can't speak for them entirely, but I know when my grandmother emigrated from Germany and immigrated to the United States, she consciously had to, you know, make a choice, and she left my father behind in Germany for a number of years before she could bring him to America. And that had to be a very tough decision to split up a family, but she felt it was in the best interest because, you know, post-World War II Germany was in terrible shape, had some relatives here, there were opportunities in America, and she thought long-term it would be better for my father. Now, that decision-making process, some parents, you know, if I have a 14-year-old kid and I'm up from Guatemala, I want my kid. They're going to let my kid stay in America. I'm gonna break the family up and tell my son, I know it's going to suck, and we're not going to see each other, and it's going to hurt a lot. But you need to stay in America because the opportunities here are way better than Guatemala. And there's no doubt about that. So unfortunately, even though the parents could probably take the kid back, they're stuck with the reason of, why would I take my kid out of America if they're going to let my kid stay in America versus the future they have in my home country?
Right.
And somebody may say, what are you trying to say about Guatemalans? All I'm trying to say is that when you come from a country that's poorer than dirt and you've got your foot into America somehow, you don't leave. And let's be honest, if it's moral, you can buy your way into America. If you got $500,000 to open a qualified small business, you can get your visa and then your green card and then your permanent status. So we're not opposed to anybody coming from anywhere. It's just what can they bring us economically that we care about at the end of the day. And so if they're basing their decisions on the same thing, you know what I mean? So I always find that funny. Like our immigration policy is completely like if you have a special skill and somebody will sponsor, you can come over with an H-1B or whatever it is visa. And if you have $500,000 to invest in a qualified small business, well, gee, you got $500,000 you'll bring to America with you? Okay, we'll let you in. We'll walk you around normal immigration. So we're doing the same thing that those people are doing, which is they're looking at it from the other side going, I come from a really poor country and my kid's got his foot into America. I'll leave him behind. So I don't think they're making a bad decision. It's a tough decision family-wise. But why are we allowing that decision? Because I think Obama's trying to create an issue where there shouldn't be one. I think he's trying to force us into some kind of position where people throw their hands in the air and go, well, what the hell? We might as well just let them all stay.
That makes sense.
I don't know what his real reason would be besides that.
I don't know what his real reason is for a lot of stuff. I hear, you just hear some of the decisions he's made about a lot of stuff. You just never know what to think about anybody in those positions. I can't imagine.
I think Don Stevens is joining us, Lucinda.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Don,
is that a big day for him?
Hey, Carl.
Hey, what's going on, brother?
Good evening.
Hi, Don. How are you?
I'm doing good.
This is a big day for you and your family.
It's a big. I know. I'm so excited.
Yeah,
I can't think of a better son-in-law.
Did you think this through, Carl? Father-in-law.
Isn't this kind of like nepotism, though, Carl?
Kind of, yes.
How come Avery never calls in?
We're trying to get her persuaded because, believe me, you guys would like her. She is very funny.
She's just so shy.
Well, I don't know about all that. Maybe it's just you, Carl. You're so overwhelmingly intimidating.
I think I might be making her shy.
It could be your magnificence that makes her feel bashful.
That's definitely it. That's it.
My favorite is Maria's on here. Gigi, we are not talking about your crazy thoughts. This involves my daughter.
What's funny is my daughter and my wife are 3 years apart.
Good work, Don.
Hey.
I think. I hope you're on the right side of that one.
How many years?
3.
How many years apart? Oh, 3. Okay.
3.
Yeah.
They're not related too, are they?
And his daughter's 14, so that's strange.
Oh.
It is Pennsylvania. There's close ties, family ties there in Pennsylvania. Well, you should know, Lucinda, down there in Mount Joy, there's a lot of that Amish inbreeding stuff going on.
She can't comment.
Oh, my gosh. No, I can't comment on it. I don't have any neighbors like that. What?
Oh, my goodness. Jakey. Oh, boy.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, well, and the good thing about making fun of the Amish is, they don't have a radio, right?
We know they aren't listening.
I don't know. I've seen a couple of them.
Well, I'll tell you, my mother was a tax assessor back in the day, doing property assessments up in New York. And we have about 40 Amish families up on the hill. And, they would be like, well, my assessment shouldn't be that high because I have no running water and I have no electricity. To which you would look on their porch and they would have a washing machine. And you'd be like, that's strange. And then you'd look and say, well, there's a wire going to the house. Oh, no, it's not connected to anything. Like, okay. You've got running water and you've got electricity and you claim you have neither. Does everybody else down here know? Or are you just like, do people, I always wonder, they go by in the buggy and they go, look at look at Brother Don. He's got electricity. He's so sinful.
I'll tell you what, anybody who's grown up around Amish, though, knows that they are the biggest hypocrites. They're just like all the rest of the religious hypocrites. You know what I mean? They say one thing and do completely a different thing.
Well, I know, you hear these things, and these are slurs, but you hear, and I've heard this over the years many times, like, oh, the Amish came up and they killed all the deer off the mountain, because... And I grew up. It was not right. There was no rifle hunting when I was shotguns only. But we used to see the Amish guys in the woods, and they carried whatever gun they wanted. There was no deer hunting regulations and tagging and all that stuff going on amongst the Amish boys. They sort of just kind of went out and hunted deer. The other thing back up in Western New York is there's apple orchards and cherry orchards. And in the springtime, when the cherries come in, if you don't get to the pick-your-own cherry orchard before the Amish descend on it, they'll just come off the hill one day with like 10 buggies full of kids, and they'll just pick every cherry off the tree. Boom, gone. Done.
Yep, goes to show you.
Boom, gone. And then they turn them into pies and sell them roadside for $5 more than you should pay for them, but people driving, the tourists driving.
They are delicious.
And there's no
I
inspection
would
on
pay
those.
that $5. They're delicious.
You don't see Amish people washing their hands before they make your food.
I don't know. I've never seen an Amish person wash their hands, but then again, I haven't really hung out. I've seen them steal
in the same circles I do then, Carl.
I've seen them steal a deer before, but that's a whole other story.
That's not good.
I go to a lot of auctions. I see a lot of the underbelly of Amish culture, believe me.
Well, of course, you
Amish children are adorable.
Right.
They're hard workers and they're adorable. And then I don't know what I mean. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm not gonna.
Then they grow up to become members of the Amish mafia and get on TV.
I know.
Hey, but you know what? In the atheist, I would say if we had a theocracy in this country like Christians want us to have, that's how we would all be living right now.
Well,
And how much morally better would we be, Don? Come on.
Exactly. That's my point.
Well, I never would have met Avery in a strip club, that's for sure.
Well, you might have, but you just wouldn't have been honest about it.
Are there any Amish girls at the strip club?
I've seen some Amish guys at the strip club.
Springer, yeah, I'm sure there are.
Yeah, when they go crazy. I mean, we used to fight them. When I was a kid, you go fight the Amish kids.
Oh, my God, what?
Well, the Amish boys would come down off the mountain, because they were all crazy because they were allowed to be. And, of course, they dressed a little funny. So then the English, that would be us, we'd exchange some words, and there'd be like a little rumble with the Amish boys, and, to do that, once periodically.
That's Carl Rominger. He's awfully sexy. He takes a bath.
Yeah, well, I brush my teeth morning and night, whether they need it or not. Usually Sunday morning and Saturday night.
Oh, that's terrible. I was thinking about you today, Carl, and you listened too. Also, thinking about you because of last week's conversation about dogs.
Yes.
Going to heaven. Well, I had an encounter with law enforcement today. My wife and I stopped to get some fabric for a project we're working on, and we walked into this enormous fabric store for, I don't know, maybe 35 seconds before I hear over the loudspeaker, the front of the white cargo van in the parking lot, please come to the front of the store. I go to the front of the store. It's a cop. He's there. Sir, are you in the van out in the parking lot? Yes, I do. He said, well, you have a dog in the van with the wings. Somebody called a complaint.
Maybe the dog?
Well, we have a dog, and we left it. I mean, we were literally in there a minute, and someone called the police to let us know that to let the police know that somebody had abandoned their pet in a hot vehicle.
Well, you probably saw that picture I put on Facebook with the guy who put a note on the door that said the air conditioning's running and he's listening to Creedence Clearwater Revival. And
I talked to the cop, and the cop was kind of cool about it. He's like, I understand this. I was hot today, and I looked in. The dog's sleeping. And everything should be fine, but somebody did call in. So I went in and let the dog out. I mean, it's no big deal. And the cop was kind of like, people do this all the time.
Right, some do go.
And the thought that occurs to me is that people care about more about a freaking dog than they do like actual important stuff. It's a self-right. Not everyone wants to be a pet hero. They want to call the cops and get the poor doggy who's trapped in the vehicle. And it's not always the case.
Who do you think called you in? A guy in Birkenstocks with a ponytail or a soccer mom?
No. You know what it was? Because I'll tell you this. Here's my thing. It's called Mary Jo's Cloth Store, and they're Christians. And I guarantee the people there were puppy parents Okay,
Damn Christians.
they were
You blame it on the
Christians, and
Christians.
They were feeling on a moral high horse, and that's what they did. That's why they called it.
He's blaming it on the Christians.
I know, those Christians, all they want to do is be nice and make sure a dog's okay.
Yeah, well, that's what they try to make you believe, but that's really not what's going on there.
John, let me ask you a question. In honest reality, do you think that person had it out and said, I got to get on my high horse? Or do you think that they saw a dog in a car and said, hey, I hear a lot about it in the paper, some 22-month-old
If the dog was like laid out on the floor, near death, I would understand, but I mean, I'm not exaggerating. Literally 60
How do you
seconds
know,
in the
though?
floor.
Without talking to the owner, how would you know?
And here's the thing now, and here's the way I feel about it. If dogs are going to go to heaven, who cares? You're going to go to heaven. Big deal.
Exactly.
that is wrong.
Guys.
Carl, you're not.
Carl would shoot him in the head
allowed
and
to
say,
say anything.
whatever.
Okay, I'll just listen.
You're not allowed to say anything because you don't like animals. You don't like pets. You don't have to say anything.
I have empathy for animals. I do. Tasty ones, especially.
Carl's not exactly a big animal lover, I don't think.
I have a lot of empathy for animals.
He loves to shoot them and kill them. And
I'm for the
stuff,
people
but
of.
eat 'em.
I'm a member of People for the Eating of Tasty Animals, PETA.